What's up, everybody? Just got back from seeing Alien Romulus, so let's talk about it. Just to start things off, I wanted to give some context as to, the extent of my fandom for the Alien franchise. I would classify myself as a casual fan. I didn't really even start really watching the Alien movies until I was in my teenage years, which was already well past when the originals came out. And really, I was there, like, I really picked up on it when Alien vs. Predator movies were releasing, which, aren't really the best. So I never really had that nostalgic sentiment with the Alien franchise. I've always just kind of been a casual viewer. I do acknowledge, though, the cultural impact that those first two movies in the franchise had. And, even though I don't personally love them, because maybe I just saw them too late in life, I understand why diehard fans of this franchise, love them as much as they do. And I understand because they're just the two best movies of this franchise. Even though I'm not obsessed with them and I don't love them as much as some people, I can acknowledge that those are the two best films of this franchise. And the first positive that I want to talk about with this film is this is the first Alien movie to truly feel like a horror follow up from the original. A lot of the other films have really gone more heavy on the action side, where I feel like with Alien Romulus, they really put a focus on the horror aspect, courtesy of Fede Alvarez, the director, who, I love his previous horror work. And yeah, this feels like genuinely the follow up to the original movie that a lot of people and a lot of horror fans have been waiting for a very long time. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this film. And to kind of piggyback off that, really you just get the sense this entire film that Fede Alvarez is a super fan of this franchise. I mean, the amount of Easter eggs that this film has, the amount of callbacks and fan service, this film has sometimes to be a little bit too much, but I didn't really mind it, and you could tell he just put those things into this movie because he genuinely loves this franchise. Yeah, so he to me he killed it, and I think he was the perfect director to take up this project and do exactly this type of movie, which a lot of fans have been wanting for a long time. One of the things he does really well is he sets up the environments and then the threats within those environments very, very well. He will have the characters go into a certain room, and when you see the environment of that room, you see something, and he kind of, puts it front and center. About the room, he puts it front and center, so later on in that movie that we're going to follow back up on that, and that's going to be very important. He does that multiple times in the film, and I felt like that was a very effective way to build tension when you went back. Because then at that point, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that from earlier in the movie. And then it pays off, and it does it in a very effective way. And then one thing that I really loved that this movie did when it came to the xenomorphs is it went practical, right? I love CGI. I think when CGI is used effectively, it can be a great tool for movies. But obviously a lot of times nowadays that we don't get that, right? They use CGI in the most wonky ways. And, that even happens in this movie, which we'll get to in a little bit. But this movie uses practical effects very great with the xenomorph specifically. And it makes it feel real, right? It makes it feel like this is a built out, fleshed out world that feels real. It's not a fake alien. And in that sense, with the scares and with the chase scenes that you have, it's very effective. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is the main character, played by Kaylee Spaney, Rain, and then the synthezoid played by David Johnson, Andy. Their relationship was the best thing when it came to character development and character arcs in this film. They're just the way they played off each other, their connection, the relationship they have. I just felt was fantastic and was clearly the heart and soul of this film. And specifically, I was surprised by Andy's performance. He kind of, I don't want to get into spoilers, but he has a back and forth moments on his personality and how he acts. And I just felt like the actor specifically did a great job. And then the implications that has on the relationship between these two was handled very well and was very, was basically the emotional heart of the film. And as much as I've been praising this movie, for going back to its horror roots and kind of following up that original film, for Alien fans, this movie has a few pretty good action scenes in the back half of the film that I think you'll get some enjoyment out of. And yeah, there was a couple of them that were pretty creative, and I didn't really, it wasn't something that was familiar within the franchise, which this movie had a few moments like that. It was very creative and it was very fun. But even though there was a lot to like in this film, I felt like there was definitely some things that I was negative on. The first one I wanted to talk about is basically more of a technical error. And I've heard a few people complain about this, but in like the first 20 or 30 minutes, the way that the sound was mixed, it was kind of hard to understand a decent amount of the dialogue that was happening. I don't necessarily think we were missing out on anything too important, but it was just very strange how the sound was mixed because you really could not make out what they were saying. And I have seen some people complain about how slow the movie starts off and how long it takes to get going. And like while I do agree with that, I will say compared to like the original Alien movie, I actually don't think it's bad. It really takes about 25 to 30 minutes to get going, but once it does, it pretty much takes off for the entire rest of the movie. So I didn't really have a problem with it starting off slow. It took that time to establish characters, establish motivations. So I didn't really have a problem with it, but it is about a 25 to 30 minute period where it starts off slow. And while most of the, fan service or callback moments of the movie I didn't really have a problem with, there were two aspects of it that I didn't really enjoy. One, and I don't want to get into spoilers here, one aspect was there was a specific character, I'll say, that is from another movie. And the CGI that they used was not great. It was almost distracting every single time they would cut to this person, and I just didn't like how they did that. Can't really elaborate anymore without giving away spoilers, but yeah, there were certain CGI moments with certain characters was not great. And then also, for majority of the runtime of this film, they do play it a little safe, right? I think that's what works about the movie because we're kind of getting back to the roots of this franchise and something that's basically something that a lot of people have wanted for quite some time. So it plays it safe for a majority of the film. But then once we get into like the last like 15, 20 minutes of the movie, they really take a bold swing in what they do in that final sequence of the film. And, when the idea of that swing that they take is introduced, I really went, oh, I was really excited about it. But then the execution and what they actually then do with it was a bit disappointing. And it kind of, soured me on the movie a little bit walking out. It was nothing egregious per se, but I just felt like with how good the rest of the movie was and how much I enjoyed the rest of the movie, the last, 15, 20 minutes not really working for me was a bit of a disappointment. But yeah, all in all, guys, I mean, this is not a perfect movie by any means, but for what I want out of an Alien movie, I felt like this really delivered with returning to the roots of that original film. Being directed by Fede Alvarez, who's one of my favorite directors working today. I had a great time with this film. To me, the positives outweighed the negatives. So on a rating scale, I'm gonna give it a probably 4 out of 5. Honestly, I don't know if this is necessarily my favorite film in the franchise. I got to give it some time, but I had a great time with it. And as a horror fan, I felt like this is the direction that we need to go with the franchise. So yeah, if you guys have seen Alien Romulus, go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you thought of it, and have a great night.